You're not even my real dad, my stepson sneered as he and my wife spent my money on her ex. They treated me like a doormat, mocked me at family dinners, and kicked me out of my own home. I just laughed. 72 hours later, they all regretted their words. Oh, you're not even my real dad. Those words still echo in my head, but not for the reason Jimmy probably expected. Hey everyone, before we dive in, I have a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and ensures you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. Let me back up and explain how I ended up laughing while my wife and stepson stared at me in shock last night. I've been married to Alice for 3 years. When we first got together, things were great. Jimmy was 14 then, and while he wasn't exactly thrilled about having a stepdad, he was civil. I tried my best to be there for him without pushing too hard. I helped with homework when asked, showed up to his games, and tried to give him space when he needed it. The first red flag I missed was how Jimmy and his dad, James, kept having these secret phone calls. I'd catch Jimmy whispering in his room or quickly ending calls when I walked by. I brushed it off as normal teen stuff. The second flag was how Alice started insisting on handling all our finances herself about 6 months ago. "You're so busy, let me take care of it," she'd say. Like an idiot, I agreed. Things really started going downhill about 2 months ago. Jimmy became increasingly hostile, not just normal teenage attitude. We're talking straight-up disrespect. He'd make snide comments about my clothes, my car, even the way I ate. Alice would just laugh it off, saying, "Oh, he's just being a teenager." But the look they'd share afterward, I should have seen it. I started paying more attention. I noticed large withdrawals from our joint account, always when I was busy at work. Alice had explanations for everything: car repairs, school fees, family emergencies, but the numbers weren't adding up. Last night was supposed to be a normal family dinner. I noticed Jimmy smirking at his phone throughout the meal. Alice kept giving him these little nods. Finally, Jimmy put his phone down and looked straight at me. "We need to talk," he said, trying to sound tough. "Mom's not happy, I'm not happy, and you need to leave." I put down my fork. "Excuse me?" Alice jumped in. "He's right, Gary. This isn't working. We want you out by the end of the week." I stayed quiet, waiting. They had more to say, I could tell. "You've been controlling and manipulative," Alice continued, gaining confidence from my silence. "Jimmy deserves better. I deserve better." "Yeah," Jimmy sneered. "You're not even my real dad. You can't tell me what to do anymore." "Dad says..." "James says what?" I interrupted, finally understanding. "What exactly has your dad been saying?" They both started talking at once about how James was going to move back in, how they'd been planning this for months, how they'd used my money to help James set up his new business. They thought they had it all figured out. I started laughing, not a happy laugh, the kind that makes people nervous. Both of them stopped talking. "Let me make something very clear," I said, pulling out my phone. "This is my house. The deed is in my name. Those joint accounts you've been draining, that's barely a fraction of what I have. And James's new business? Check the ownership papers carefully." I stood up, dialing a number. "You have until tomorrow at noon to pack your bags. Security will be here in 20 minutes to change all the locks and codes. I've already called my lawyer." Alice's face went white. "You can't do this. We're married." "For now," I replied, walking toward my office. "Oh, and Jimmy? You're right. I'm not your real dad. A real dad wouldn't have spent your college fund on his failing business venture. Ask your mom about that." The security company arrived while they were still screaming and threatening. I sat in my office, sending emails to my lawyer and bank, listening to them realize just how badly they'd miscalculated. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. Sometimes it's just being prepared and watching people face the consequences of their own actions. Update: the morning after the confrontation was surreal. I was sipping my coffee in the kitchen when Alice came storming down the stairs, her face red with anger. She was frantically waving her phone around, screaming about her declined Apple Pay at Starbucks. "What did you do?" she shrieked, getting right in my face. I calmly took another sip of coffee. "I protected my assets, Alice, like any reasonable person would when they discover their spouse has been secretly funneling money to their ex." Jimmy came thundering down next, looking like he'd seen a ghost. "Mom, the PlayStation subscription got canceled, and I can't get into Netflix or HBO." I couldn't help but smile. "Those were all on my accounts, buddy. You know, the ones you said I was too stupid to protect." Alice tried using her credit card to order DoorDash, declined. Her Uber account, suspended. Even her Amazon Prime, stopped working. The realization that I had methodically cut off every subscription and account hit her like a truck. "You can't do this to us," she screamed, throwing her phone at the wall. It cracked satisfyingly against the kitchen backsplash. "James will." "James will what?" I interrupted, pulling out my phone to show her my recent text exchange with her ex. "You mean the James who's been dodging my calls about the money you've been sending him? The James who just blocked me when I mentioned a potential audit?" Jimmy started pacing, running his hands through his hair. "Whatever. My college fund is still safe. Dad would never." "Your college fund?" I laughed, pulling up the bank statements I'd gathered. "You mean the account your parents drained last month?" "Yeah, I found those transfers too. Looks like they spent your future on some interesting purchases." The color drained from Jimmy's face as I showed him the evidence. Designer clothes, expensive electronics, spa treatments, all bought with his college money. Alice tried to snatch the papers, but I'd already made copies. My lawyer chose that perfect moment to ring the doorbell. Alice's face went from rage to fear in an instant when she saw the manila envelope. She refused to accept the divorce papers, so he simply placed them on the counter. "You have 48 hours to vacate the premises," I stated calmly. "Security will be here to escort you out if needed." The next hour was chaos. Alice tried calling James repeatedly, but his phone went straight to voicemail. She left increasingly desperate messages, her voice cracking as she realized her safety net was disappearing. Jimmy's tough guy act crumbled when he discovered his gaming PC and most expensive sneakers were actually bought on my credit card. I'd already reported them as unauthorized purchases. The look on his face when the collection company called about picking them up was priceless. They spent the rest of the day frantically packing, cursing me, threatening lawsuits, and trying to steal anything not bolted down. The security cameras I'd installed caught Alice trying to sneak out with my watches and cufflinks. The police officer who stopped by to oversee the situation wasn't impressed. By evening, reality had fully set in. Alice's friends stopped responding once they learned what she'd done. James finally answered one call, just to tell them he didn't have room for them to stay. I overheard their conversation from my home office. He actually laughed when Alice begged for help. The final straw was Jimmy's Instagram meltdown. He posted a long rant about me, calling me every name in the book. Within minutes, evidence of their scam started flooding the comments. Turns out they'd pulled similar stunts with Alice's previous relationships. The truth had finally caught up with them. They left the next morning in Alice's old BMW, which was probably headed for repossession soon given the unpaid loans I'd discovered. Jimmy couldn't even slam the door properly. It just made a sad, rusty squeak. I changed the codes, replaced the locks, and poured myself another coffee. My phone buzzed with a text from Alice. "You'll regret this. We'll make your life hell." I smiled, remembering all the documentation safely stored with my lawyer. Looking forward to it, I texted back, then blocked her number. The house felt different that night, quieter, cleaner somehow. I ordered pizza, watched a movie without anyone complaining about my choice, and slept better than I had in months. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people face the consequences of their own actions. But this was just the beginning. I had a feeling they hadn't quite learned their lesson yet. Update 2. For those following along, this is part 3 of my ongoing saga. Check my post history for parts 1 and 2. The past few weeks have been absolute chaos, but in a way that's oddly satisfying to watch unfold. Remember how I mentioned I had an ownership stake in James's business? Well, that little detail came in handy sooner than expected. Last Tuesday, I'm sitting at my kitchen counter enjoying my morning coffee when my phone starts blowing up with notifications. Turns out, Alice had gone on a full social media rampage, posting a bunch of edited screenshots of our old text conversations on Facebook and Instagram, trying to paint me as some kind of monster. The best part? She accidentally included messages where she was bragging to her friend about spending money from our joint account on James's business investment. I didn't even have to do anything. Her own friends started calling her out in the comments. "Didn't you just post about your luxury spa weekend last month? Weren't you bragging about Jimmy's new gaming setup?" The backpedaling was glorious to watch. Speaking of Jimmy, his entitled attitude finally caught up with him at school. He tried pulling the same manipulative tactics he used at home with his teachers. Wrong move. He got caught trying to change his grades on the school portal. Guess who paid for a friend to hack it? The school board wasn't impressed. They're letting him graduate, but he's banned from all senior activities, including prom. When he tried to blame it on stress from his home situation, the principal pulled up screenshots of his Instagram stories bragging about the hack. But here's where it gets really good. Remember James? The amazing ex-husband who could do no wrong? Well, without access to my money flowing through Alice, his true colors came out fast. Alice called me crying. I blocked her number, but she used her work phone because James threw them out after she couldn't pay the rent he was charging them. Apparently, he's been subletting his apartment illegally, and now they're all facing eviction. I got an unexpected visit from James at my office. He was trying to act tough, demanding I take Alice and the kid back because he couldn't deal with their drama. I just smiled and reminded him about that ownership stake I mentioned. See, I'd been quietly documenting every questionable business transaction he'd made using the money Alice funneled to him. Nothing illegal, just very ethically questionable. The look on his face when I pulled out the folder was priceless. The real justice, though? Their mutual friends started reaching out to me. Turns out Alice and James had been bad-mouthing me to anyone who would listen, but their stories kept changing. Someone finally got suspicious and started asking questions. The truth came out in bits and pieces. The financial manipulation, the lies, everything. I ran into Jimmy at the grocery store yesterday. The kid looked rough, no more designer clothes or latest iPhone. He was buying ramen with loose change. For a second, I almost felt bad. Then I remembered how he laughed while calling me a pathetic loser at that last dinner. He saw me too. First time I've seen him look embarrassed instead of arrogant. Alice lost her job last week. Not because of me. She did that all on her own. Apparently, she tried to use company resources to dig up dirt on me, hoping to find something she could use for leverage. Instead, she got caught accessing confidential files without authorization. Her boss, who I'd never even met, called to give me a heads up because he'd seen the screenshots of her admitting to financial manipulation and wanted to warn me about her trying to abuse company resources. It's fascinating watching their house of cards collapse. Every scheme they tried has backfired spectacularly. They're now crashing on James's sister's couch, the same sister who used to join them in mocking me at family gatherings. Karma really does come full circle. The best part, I haven't had to do anything except sit back and watch them destroy themselves. Every attempt they've made to fix their situation has just dug them deeper. Alice tried to claim I'd stolen from her in our joint accounts. The bank pulled up her documented transfers to James. Jimmy tried to play victim at school. His own social media posts proved otherwise. James tried to threaten me. His own paper trail destroyed his credibility. My lawyer says the divorce should be finalized soon. Alice's last-ditch effort to claim emotional distress fell apart when her own Facebook posts showed her bragging about manipulating me. At this point, I almost feel like I should thank them. They've made everything so much easier by documenting their own bad behavior. I hear they're looking at apartments in the sketchy part of town now. Quite a change from the luxury lifestyle they thought they'd secured. Yes, karma doesn't take kindly to gold diggers and their enablers. Update. Just got a text from Jimmy's school. Apparently, he tried to claim I'd promised to pay for his college. The administration asked for proof and found our prenup specifically excluded college expenses. These people really don't learn. Final update. It's been exactly 8 months since everything went down, and Karma finally showed up wearing steel-toed boots. I was grabbing coffee at the local corner store when I spotted Alice and James arguing in the parking lot of their rundown apartment complex across the street. They were living in the kind of place where the rent signs always say, "No credit check," in faded red letters. "You promised Jimmy you'd help with his tuition." Alice was screaming, her designer purse, definitely a knockoff now, swinging wildly. "He's your son." James, looking significantly more worn down than when he was living off my money, shot back, "I promised when I thought your rich husband was footing the bill. I can barely make rent." I couldn't help but smirk into my coffee. The apartment they were fighting in front of was a far cry from my 4-bedroom house they tried to take from me. Last I heard, Jimmy had to turn down his acceptance to state because neither of his parents could co-sign his loans. He's working at the mall now, the same one where he used to spend my money on overpriced sneakers. The real karma hit last week. Jimmy showed up at my door looking nothing like the cocky kid who'd screamed, "You're not even my real dad," in my face. His eyes were red, and he was wearing the same kind of cheap work uniform I used to wear at his age. "Gary, I messed up," he stammered. "Mom and Dad, they keep fighting about money. Dad's girlfriend kicked us out because he spent her rent money. Mom's working 2 jobs now. I didn't know." I let him stand there, remembering all the times he called me controlling for suggesting he get a summer job. I asked, keeping my voice neutral, "I'm sorry." He blurted out, "I was such a dick to you. You tried to teach me about money and responsibility, and I thought Dad was so cool because he always said yes to everything, but he was just spending your money. And Mom, she kept telling me you were trying to control us, but you were the only one actually looking out for me." I could have slammed the door. Part of me wanted to. Instead, I said, "Come back Saturday morning. 8 a.m. sharp, we'll talk." He showed up at 7:45, which was the first surprise. We sat on my porch and I laid it out straight. "I'm not giving you money. That's not what this is about. But if you're serious about turning things around, I'll help you make a plan. Real work, real consequences, real results, your choice." Jimmy nodded, looking more like a man than the boy who'd left 8 months ago. "I want to learn, for real this time." That was 3 weeks ago. He's been showing up every Saturday since, learning about budgeting, work ethic, and how to handle his parents' manipulation. Alice found out and showed up screeching about how I was turning her baby against her. The neighbors probably enjoyed that show. "You think you've won," she screamed from my driveway. "You think you can just steal my son?" I stepped onto the porch, calm as could be. "Alice, the only person who lost anything here is Jimmy, and that's on you and James. Now get off my property before I call the cops again." She left, but not before throwing her fake designer purse at my car. The security cameras caught it all, just like they caught her keying my car last month. Her next paycheck's going straight to my lawyer, just like the last one. Yesterday, Jimmy told me he's enrolling in community college for next semester. He's paying for it himself with the money he saved up from his mall job. For the first time in his life, he actually looked proud of himself. James still calls sometimes, usually drunk, alternating between threats and begging for loans. I've got all the voicemails saved. My lawyer loves getting those updates for the harassment case. The house is quieter now. Sometimes I miss the family I thought I had, but watching karma do its work, that's better than any revenge I could have planned. Alice and James are drowning in the consequences of their own actions. And Jimmy? Well, he's finally growing up. I heard through mutual friends that Alice has been telling people I destroyed her family. I just laugh. They destroyed themselves. I just refuse to let them destroy me too. Like today's story, a super thanks helps me keep bringing you the best daily content. Your support means I can keep doing what I love. Thanks for being awesome.